welcome to the War Room, Joel Sandoval. Thank you so much for stopping by today, man. It's going to be an exciting one. I can already tell. Jason and I and you have already been having a little back and forth since the jump. So we're all having fun. As you said, it's fun to have fun. I like starting things off in this way because I think it sets the tone for the entire conversation. Do you, Joel, do you come from a family of entrepreneurs?
I do not, actually.
Okay, let's go into that. So you're the first. What made you want to be an entrepreneur then?
Yeah, I actually did not want to be an entrepreneur. Actually, seeing both my parents successful in real estate, that's actually what I wanted to do after high school. Not necessarily as a real estate agent, but in the real estate industry. For example, my mom is an escrow officer and my dad's a property manager. And I never knew how much money they really made, but I knew that they were providing a good lifestyle for me and my brothers and my sister. And it was nice to see that. And so that's why I kind of wanted to follow their footsteps, right? You kind of only go based on what you know. And so, but it was terrible timing because this was like around when I graduated high school was around 2005, 2006, when there was a big recession. So, you know, I decided that, okay, obviously this is bad timing. I didn't really have any money to invest in real estate. Didn't really know what I was doing. So I was fortunate enough actually to meet a CPA that was working at the escrow company I was working for. And she basically told me that despite the fact that we're in a recession, that she felt she had a stable and secure job. So that's actually what I went to school for. I left my hometown, small hometown of Watsonville, California, mainly Hispanic, to move to Bakersfield, California, where I live now, to go to Cal State University, Bakersfield. And I was pretty good, I was a good student, graduated top of my class, 3.95 GPA. Got multiple offers from different CPA firms once I graduated with my bachelor's degree. And I started working for the man. And I was working basically 8 a.m. till about 12 midnight, sometimes 1 in the morning during tax season. Didn't really have a life. And I was like, this is not really what I wanted. When I went to school, I was like, this kind of sucks, actually. And so then I came across, I don't even know how I come across it, but I started reading entrepreneurial books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Came across other entrepreneurs like Ty Lopez that were, going big on social media at the time. This was like maybe 6-7 years ago. And, but at the time I was making, pretty good money, 6 figures as a CPA already. But one day my boss kind of made me upset. Friday night, it was 6 o'clock. I had to run a quick errand after work, maybe 30-40 minutes. And he's like, hey, never let your priorities, your personal errands come before my business. Like my business comes first. And I was like, wow, really 30 minutes? And I was still going to come back to work and get the job done. I showed it to my wife and she's like, hey, you've been reading about entrepreneurship. Why don't you just give it a shot? So I went from 6 figures to 0 figures, literally overnight. And I started my journey as an entrepreneur. And actually the next day, I started my entrepreneurial path. Had to, put a sign out front my office, because I got an office literally the next day that said tax preparation. 2 hours later, my wife calls, how many clients do you have? And I'm like, you're my first phone call today. Did not have any clients. And then to make things even more intense, of course, 2 weeks after I quit my job, I found out we were expecting our firstborn daughter and my wife was supporting the family. And she's like, hey, I know I gave you my word to, my blessing to start your business, but I'm only going to give you 9 months to make this work because I want to be a stay-at-home mom. And if you don't make this business work, you're going to have to go back and get a job. I'm sorry. So I hustled, did things, that I normally wouldn't have done, cold called, door knocked, and eventually fast forward to today, I built a multi-seven-figure accounting firm based out of Bakersfield, California, but we serve all 50 states.
Oh, wow, man. There's so much to unpack there. I mean, first of all, it seems like you've told this story a few times. And if not, you're just well-spoken because that was well put. And you were able to put in all the key elements of a story, that one word. Yeah, without so your attention to detail probably goes right into your work. So that's good to know right off the bat. Oh, there's so much to be said. And I imagine Jason's probably itching to get in on this. So I just want to ask one quick question because for me, hearing the story of like that moment when because all of it was good, but in particular when your employer at the time it was like 6 p.m. already, right?
Yeah.
You worked from 8 to like midnight, which is already crazy. I get it. It's a short season, but still, uh, half an hour to go run an errand and come back literally doesn't kill anyone, you
Right.
know? So to have the presence of mind to say to yourself, well, this isn't right. And then to
Yeah.
have a partner who supports you and encourages you to step away from that. What what was that like in that moment? Did you realize that it was a life defining moment? I know you broke it down, but was it clear to you like this is the day that things change?
Yeah, it was for me because I'm pretty risk averse. So like I had always heard like, hey, you need at least 1 year's worth of cash reserves of savings before you quit your job because you don't really make any money the first 2 years. And so, but as when you're working 9 to 5, I mean, it's so hard to build a year's worth of savings. Like you barely have enough money to pay the bills. So that was probably never going to happen. And it wasn't until actually my boss, kind of just pissed me off really that my wife's like, just give it a shot, see what happens. And if it wasn't for that, I didn't even think about cash reserves. I didn't think about any of that. It was an emotional decision where I'm like, I'm gonna go do this and see what happens. And worst comes to worst, I'll go back and get a job. But I was not gonna fail, like, because I was so like determined to not have to go back.
And now I want to give the floor to Jason because I'm sure he's got a thing or two he's been wanting to say.
I absolutely love the piss off mentality, right? When people finally realize, why am I building a damn fortune for this asshole, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I can go out and do this myself, right?
Yeah.
And kudos to you for doing it. And you said something that was interesting, and that is you're more risk avert, right?
Right.
And I always tell people, God, Jesus, stop looking before you leap and just go. Is it always going to work? Are you going to fall on your ass a couple times? Of course you are, right?
Yep.
If it was easy, everybody'd be doing it. So, right?
Exactly.
It's always a challenge. There's always a challenge there. There's always going to be arrows in the back, no matter what. But you did it, and you built a beautiful thing out of it. And how long you been at it?
I've been at it now full time for about 6.5 years.
Nice.
I've been thinking in my head for 3 years, but yeah, full time 6.5 for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. And I got to tell you, kudos on you creating a great business structure. It's not easy. There's nothing easy about it. And,
oh yeah, 100%.
I mean, it looks sexy from the outside, right? Like, oh yeah, you got this great company and all this stuff, right? Well, what most people don't realize was there was a lot of unsexy moments, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
For sure. But you took a situation and you flipped it upside down and said, I'm going to make about 5 gallons out of one lemon. Right. And, that you don't see that often. That's it's a rarity. So congratulations for that, for sure.
Cheers. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, even looking back, thank you. Yeah. Even looking back, it's like, man, what was I thinking? Because it just knowing what I know now, I think I would do it so much differently. But at the time it was just like such an emotional decision. And I was like, so determined to like make this work. And I didn't really have, the skills that I have now. Like I knew how to prepare a tax return, but I didn't know how to like sell and persuade someone to purchase my service. I didn't know how to build a team and have a culture that all supports my mission, vision, values. Like that was all foreign stuff to me. And I just knew how to prepare taxes and how to provide value to an employer, but now to provide value to the marketplace and how to persuade yourself to, because what I noticed, at least in my career, was, I just had to sell myself once, which was in the interview, and I knew what the pay was going to be. My salary was like, okay, 6 figures, cool. And now I had to convince someone not just one time, but multiple times to purchase my service and for the value that I felt was worth. And I had to do that on multiple occasions. And I was like, man, I don't know how to sell myself. I thought I was a good salesperson as far as interview goes, but like selling to the market is completely different. And so I had I would say the first 2 years I probably built a crappy business because I had the wrong clients, wrong team members, and so I kind of had to restructure everything and like have better clients, better team members. Now it's enjoyable to come to work because I like the clients that we work with, the team members that we got, but it was not like that when I was just starting out.
Yes, thank you. You basically lined it up. Let's unpack that, because in any business, being able to fire a client is a luxury, especially when we jump off the bridge the way you did, where you're like, I'm going for it, right? And then there was nothing to lean back on. It's like you saved up money, so that had to come. You knew that it was way more expensive to keep this lousy client than it would be to fire them and find somebody else. What was that process like for you? Because, and the reason why I'm asking this is because there are people who are still experienced business owners who will keep a client even though they know they're a pain. It's just sometimes it's hard to fire somebody. So I'd love to dig into that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the biggest breakthrough was this mindset because I remember I actually had a coach at the time, and I made them the comment that I was like, hey, I have this client that I feel like we're doing a lot of work for what we were charging, I think was maybe $500 a month. And I was like, this service probably should be priced like, in order for it to be fair, at least on our end, would be $1,000 a month. But I'm afraid to even increase their price by $50 a month because I'm afraid they're going to leave. And as a matter of fact, I'm almost certain. And I remember my coach said, he's like, hey, I still remember these words. He's like, I'm not calling you a loser, but that's loser thinking. And he's like, you got to start thinking like a winner and start thinking abundance as opposed to scarcity. And so I was like, you got to go in there with confidence, present an opportunity of why, you have this new proposition. Hey, there's this new opportunity where I can save you a lot more money in taxes. It's going to be priced at $1,000 a month, but we're going to be providing a lot more value. And as a matter of fact, if you don't upgrade, we're going to have to reprice you anyway because what we're doing for $500 a month. Unfortunately, it's not, fair to us or fair to you because we're not providing the best service. And so I ended up restructuring a lot of packages that way. And basically a lot of clients, some of them left, of course, but at the end of the day, the ones that did decide to move forward, they were aligned with our vision, and we had them pay higher fees, and we're also providing a lot more value to them as well.
Isn't that cool? Because then however many left, because everyone else doubled up, you were kind of in a better place regardless. And I've been there, if not still am there in a lot of circumstances. So I have a lot of respect for what you did there. And Jason talks my ear off about this all the time, because he's way more senior in business than I am. So it's a valuable conversation to be having. And I'm so glad that you broke that down. I'm curious, what are your goals now that you've done that for your agency?
Yeah, I mean, right now what we're trying to do is we're trying to get to the $10 million mark. So last year we hit our 7-figure mark for the first time. So we made $1 million as a firm, 1.3. This year we're on track for 2 million, but we're trying to get to 10 million in the next 2 to 3 years. And we think that it's doable. We're investing a lot into marketing. We're also looking into buying other practices. There's a lot of CPA firms for sale. And so we're building our systems, making those better so we can hire fast, make sure that there's training in place, make sure there's culture, which I already feel there is, but just kind of expand on that as well. So that's kind of where we're headed. And then eventually, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my team. So especially my managers. So eventually I want to be able to offer them equity as well. That way they get a piece of the pie whenever we do sell the business, hopefully for multiple 7 figures, and they get a windfall.
Oh, wow. Those are all big goals. I got to ask, do you have moments where you feel like texting an employee and saying, hey, you better make sure that your personal errands don't get in the way of my business?
You know what? Thankfully, I haven't had to do that. I have had, obviously, as I mentioned, I had the wrong team members when I was first starting out, and that was kind of a lesson learned. But now that I have the right team members in place, like it's just, trust. I pretty much trust them, and I have their back as well. Like if there's a client upset, of course, I'm gonna listen to both parties, but at the end of the day, like I got to make sure I have my managers back because they're the ones that are maintaining the business. For example, I remember I was out sick with COVID for about 3.5 weeks. I just couldn't get better. And I was like, man, I don't know why. I was doing everything that I could, and I just felt like I was getting worse. And I remember my salesperson, he's like, hey, I just closed another deal for $2,600 a month while I was sick in bed trying to recover. And then a couple of weeks later, while I was still sick, hey, just closed another deal for $1,500. And so there's still money coming in without me having to even be there. And that was kind of a blessing, to be able to do that. So I want to make sure I take care of my team members, because if I didn't have the culture, the team that I have now, I mean, that wouldn't be possible.
Oh man, that's huge. And the only reason I asked that question was because I can't even imagine what was going through that guy's head, knowing the kind of person you are and the work ethic you have, how anyone could have thought that. I mean, you are now in his position, right? Where you have your own firm and you're doing your own thing. There's no way that makes sense. Even now, as you say, you have such the proper approach. And I can tell just based off the work that your team was doing while you were out, that they really admire and feel great about being and working around you. So I think there's a lot to unpack there, but I'm sure Jason has a thing or two I feel like he might want to chime in and say, because there's a lot that you said that is important.
Yeah, there's tons of things, right? You've gotten to a pinnacle point you've gotten to that pinnacle point where it's like, now what, right? Because that first 7 figures is always the first ceiling, right?
Yeah.
For every single company, it's the first ceiling, and then it's like, okay, what's next? So how do I go from 1 to 10, then 10 to 20, then 20 to 30, then 30 to 40, 40 to 50? I won't go any farther than that because I've never been there. But how do you take that small, not that this should be taken the wrong way, but how do you expand from small brain to next brain to next brain to next brain, right?
Yeah.
Because that's really what it is, right?
100%.
And that's because at the end of the day, I mean, I'm not a mindset guy by any means. I don't fall into the mindset trap of most things, but right. There's something to be said about it when it comes to, my dad used to say, free your mind and your ass will follow, son. That's what he used to say, right? Yeah. But it's true, right? If you free your mind, don't have limiting beliefs of, I can get to 10 million this year.
Yep.
And I know you can do that. Did it myself. So it's totally doable. You can do it, but it's about doing the right things, right? So you do the right things in the right order and the right process and all these things. It's mechanical. So you got here, and now it's just planning to the next level. You're going to get there. There's no doubt about it. I can tell that already.
Yeah, for sure. I think that it really comes down to, like, following on, kind of piggyback off what you said, like mindset, and, if you free your mind, your ass will follow. It's like, there's a lot of people that actually do that, but then their ass doesn't actually follow. Like where they just have these huge dreams, but they don't actually put in the work. And it's like, how dedicated are you to actually make it happen? Like, I think determination and commitment, like for me, like a lot of people will call me very goal focused, goal oriented, where I'm not going to stop until I hit that goal, no matter what, gets in front of me. And I think that's really when the ass follows, is when it's like, you're going to be so determined to get to that finish line, regardless of the bumps and bruises that are going to come along the way, because you want it so bad, and you're so focused on it, and you're so driven by it. And I think that's really, you can have the mindset, but you actually got to take action as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What I like about what's happening here is you're in a perfect position to feel relaxed, to be like, wow, life's good. And yet a part of you knows there's more work to be done. And that's a really hard thing to be able to tap into when you've got a lot of your needs finally met, right? Like all your needs are met. In fact, you've got surplus. And for most people, this then becomes a challenge. Like Jason said, now what, right? Because people can get comfortable there, but you're not settling for that. And I'm just curious, given your background with your parents and have you had a conversation with them? Like, I'm curious, when you first decided to do this, and then now, what were those conversations like?
Yeah, I remember actually having that, I bounced that idea off my dad, with my dad saying, hey, I'm thinking about quitting my job. and starting my own tax business. Like, what do you think? And he was like, well, my dad's probably the more entrepreneurial one than my mom. My mom is very risk averse. She'd have been like, no way, absolutely not. He's like, you already have your nice, good paying job. Like, what else do you want? But my dad's like, hey, well, go ahead and give it a shot. But my concern is that you're going to be working so much. You're not going to have a life. You're not going to have time for your family. And you're just going to be bombarded by this business that you're going to completely lose track of what's important. And I remember him telling them that. And I was like, really? I was like, the reason I'm doing this is because I want to have more freedom, not because I want less freedom. But his thoughts were I was going to have less. And in part, he was actually true the first 2 years, because I was working 7 days a week, 365 days a year, nonstop. And I really probably, I didn't, my daughter had just been born. I didn't really see her get raised the first 2 years just because I was working so much. But now that I have a team, now that I have systems, I put in the time, the effort, sacrifice. Now, like I said, sick during COVID, making money, having a system now, I feel like the bigger you get, the less you work. At least for me, it's like now is just a matter of creating new goals, creating new visions, and putting the action, behind it to make it come into light, into fruition.
I'm so glad you said that, because it leads into the two grand finale questions. And the first one is, if you could go back and speak to yourself when you got that text message where the employer was clearly tripping, what would you say to yourself now, being the person that you are now?
I would say, find the person that you want to be like. And, after you've done your due diligence, of course, and invest into coaching and mentorship, because I try to figure it out myself, and it just probably slowed my performance by a couple of years. Like I feel that going back, I could have built a 7-figure accounting firm within 2 years. If I had the mentors that I have now. But at the time I was like scared, I wanted to save money, didn't want to invest into coaching or mentorship. And so I actually lowered my performance. If I could go back, I would say, hey, that mentor that you really think is going to get you to the next level, like go all in, and he's going to help you achieve success.
Oh man, I love that. Jason talks to me about that all the time, man. There's just people in your life that can change the game for you. And in a lot of ways, honestly, I've had a great time speaking with and working with Jason, because he's definitely done that for me. So I can second that notion that you're bringing up. And before I ask the grand finale questions, I want to give the floor to Jason in case there's anything he wants to say on that.
Yeah, I would just say this: the correlation of success and maybe it's not always just mentorship. It's just sometimes it's somebody to just like bounce an idea off of, right? Every now and then. It doesn't always have to be a formal relationship all the time, right? But throughout my life, I have had many mentors, many people that one of my best mentors I have is my neighbor. He's the ex-CEO of Oracle, and wow. Every Monday night we have a cigar and a shot of freaking whiskey and a beer, and we watch. I think we're on women's figure skating now, because there's nothing else to watch. That's what my wife says. She says, "What are you guys watching tonight? Women's figure skating? Right? There ain't no football on." But just having that sage counsel around you is you can't even put a price on it. There isn't a price to put on it, right? Because the amount of needle movement that does it's amazing. It's an amazing thing. And I've leveraged that relationship and, didn't used to. I've known him now for 5 years. We didn't even talk about business for the first 3 years I knew him.
Wow.
And then I found out he's got Warren Buffett on his speed dial and all this stuff. It's like, really? Jesus, why didn't I ask this shit before? Right? And then every time he'll tell me something, he'll give me a little piece of advice. He'll say, yeah, leave a check for 10 grand on the counter on the way out. Kidding, of course, right?
Right.
But you just can't replace that experience of sage guidance, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can get the wrong guidance for sure, but you've done well to this point, which congratulations. That's really awesome. And it really makes me proud to see, people like you that have just took the frickin' leap, didn't look, just leaped, right?
Yep.
And you've built something amazing out of that. So
Yeah,
huge
appreciate
congratulations for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, man. I mean, I've edited I can't even like thousands of episodes previously before being a host, and have interviewed thousands of people since. And I can tell you for certain that the most common things that I've seen from entrepreneurs and heard from entrepreneurs is number one, how lonely it can be when you're the only one bearing all the risk, and what that does psychologically to you. And so being a part of an organization or community or having a mentor does amazing things for your well-being mentally.
Yeah.
But also having the right partner. Like 90% of the people who are entrepreneurs and successful have all said the partner they chose was the best business decision they ever made. And I mean, your story just speaks to that, and just the way that conversation took place. So there's a lot of great things I can point back to in your journey as a story. And it's only just beginning, man. So I'm really excited for you. I want to offer the floor before I ask the grand finale to make sure that you let people know where you prefer to be reached. Obviously, it's Sandoval Tax, right, is the name of your company, but tell us a little more about it and where you prefer to be contacted.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of different ways. I mean, if you're on social media, the best way would be on Instagram. You can find me under Joel Sandoval CPA, and you'll actually find my link tree there with all of my different sites, including, a free tax assessment where we can save business owners at a very minimum $10,000 in taxes, we've saved business owners up to $300,000 by reviewing their entity selection, retirement, insurance, tax credits, loopholes. I also have a webinar that you can attend for, on how to save money on taxes if you're a business owner. A lot of information inside of my Instagram, on the Instagram bio. That's probably the best way. Or you can just go to help.sandovaltax.com, and that'll give you a free 15-minute call as well.
Nice. All right. And then with that, the grand finale question, Joel, is if you could have invited anybody, and I mean anybody, you pick from any place, any time in the world, could be yesterday, could be today, could be tomorrow, who would you have loved to have had here today with us, and why?
Yeah, I would say that one person that probably doesn't get enough credit is probably my wife. I think that, I work really, really hard, but I'm also able to focus 100% of my time in my business, because I know that at home, my wife's taking care of, her responsibilities, which includes raising my two daughters at home, making sure that, there's food going to be, food on the table when I get home. So I don't give her enough credit. And I think that I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her as well. And even going back to my story, when I quit my job, and she maintained basically me for 9 months. And she did give me that deadline, but that also pushed me to get to where I am today. So I'm very thankful for her. And I think that even, like you said, that mental space, or getting that, for me, my partner is my wife, because I get home, tell her about all the hiccups that, things that you have to deal with as a business owner. And I have the blessing to be able to bounce, what went right, what went wrong with her. And she's just my biggest cheerleader.
Oh man, I love that. Smart man too,
Yeah.
Thank you so much, man. It's really been an enjoyable conversation. Jason, is there anything you want to say as a closing statement?
Well, number one, our spouse, significant other, whatever you want to call them, right? Nowadays, they're the lifeblood of where we are usually, right? I mean, I can tell you right now, my wife is the general. She is the general of my house. And anytime somebody asks me, I say, you know what? Connect with the general and find out what the schedule is. Because I have no idea, right? But she's everything. She's the general, the colonel, all of it. She's all of it, right? While I'm, in my office doing this, I know she's up there, doing all that stuff that, well, quite frankly, I don't want to do. Right. So,
right.
So it's refreshed. My point is, it's refreshing to hear somebody say that, because usually, spouses don't get credit like that. And they really deserve it. They deserve a lot of it. So that's really good stuff. Second is I always like to say thank you for taking the time to be here. We have 168 hours in the week. You decided to spend 30 to 45 minutes of that time with us. And you can replace cars, homes, people. You can't replace people and you can't replace time. So thanks for being here, sharing your story with us and the impact that you're creating on this world today.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a pleasure, both Jason and Phillip, man. It's been an honor.
Yeah, man. I can't wait to speak to you again in 2-3 years, like you said, maybe even sooner. Actually, when you hit the 10 million mark, it's going to be a great celebratory episode, full circle.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's do that, man. Seriously, let's add to the goal.
Let's do it.
That's right.
For sure.
Right on. Well, thanks for stopping by the War Room, Joel.
Cool, man.
All
I appreciate it.